What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Fargo Season 3, Episode 5, The House of Special Purpose. So, obviously, this is the show I really want to get caught up on as fast as possible. This episode, things are still progressing along. It starts kicking off a little bit more in this episode, though, because we see just how far VM and his men are willing to go. I think I should call him Varga. It sounds much better than VM. Anyway. But we see just how far they're willing to go to make sure everything at Stussy and parking, whatever, make sure it runs smoothly. We see Ray and his now fiance, they're taking things to new heights to try to get their money's worth. And we see Gloria doing as much as she can to try to, make progress in her case, but the chief not really letting her. So it's really interesting how all of it is just sort of moving along but still tying together. You've got really several different little mini stories going on. You've got the story between Varga and Sai going on. You've got the story between Ray and Sai going on. You've got the story between Ray and Emmett going on. Emmett and Sai, Emmett and Varga, Ray and Nikki, Nikki and Sai now, Ray and Gloria, Gloria and the chief, and I think that's it. I'm pretty well, and I guess Emmett and his family now too. So all these little side stories going on, but they're all connected. So it kicks off with, we see Emmett's wife comes home and sees an envelope that says Emmett for your eyes only. So of course, seeing that, she thinks, oh well, I'm his wife, so his eyes are my eyes, obviously. So she opens it, and it's a sex tape that immediately Ray and Nikki recorded. Ray has the Emmett wig on again, pretending to be him as he's pretending to have sex with, I think his secretary is who they said they were trying to imitate. I don't know. Nikki had on a red wig, so couldn't really tell it was her. So, of course, Emmett's wife sees this, gets extremely pissed off, calls him, freaks out. Emmett gets home just in time to see her getting her family and just leaving. And so, of course, Emmett, seeing the tape, knows instantly Ray's at fault and gets really pissed off. In the meantime, Sai gets back to the office, and Varga and his men are just hanging out in his office. And so he gets in there, and we see Varga. He's been a fairly interesting but also a bit disturbing of a character in the past few episodes. We've seen him do some very strange things. We've seen him just be very intimidating without really looking intimidating. Like when you first see him, you're just like, oh yeah, he looks like a strange looking guy, but nothing too weird. But then he starts talking, and then he starts threatening, and you're just like, oh, this guy is very scary. And so he has his two, I actually remember their names now. Mimo is the Asian guy, and Yuri is the, not Russian, Slovenian? I don't remember. He's from over there in the Russian area, though. And so he's got them as backup, as Sai is just sitting there listening to him talk about his wife. You have a very fat wife, Mr. Fetlz. And just starts talking about, if I offered her a bunch of hoagies, it would be no different than if, a man offering her to put his dick in her mouth. And I'm just like, what is this guy talking about? And then he grabs this mug that says best dad ever, unzips his pants, and I'm like, are you serious? You're gonna piss in his best dad mug right in front of him? Even worse. Sticks his dick in there, rubs it around, has one of his henchmen fill it up with water so he can get Sai to drink out of it. Oh my god. That's disgusting. That's torturous. It's evil. And setting up that he is probably one of the most evil villains they've had on this show. In all the 3 seasons, he is despicable, and I love it. It's weird, and obviously it's very gross. And the entire time I'm going, but it sets up that this is who he is. He is not to be trifled with. He heard Sai apparently was talking to the police the other day, and he's really concerned that maybe Sai doesn't have the business's best interest in mind. And so sure enough, this is his punishment. This is my office now. drink out of the cup that I just put my dick in, and go to your new office. And of course, Sai, I mean, you could see he really wants to just push it back and be like, no, this is my office. He's trying so hard, but then Mimo pulls out the little gun and starts threatening him. And at that point, he's too scared to do anything else but just let it happen. And it's just so, honestly, I felt really bad for Sai in this episode. He's kind of been a dick in the past few episodes. He's not been my favorite character. I'm kind of just like, he is kind of getting what he deserves whenever something bad happens to him. But this is like over the top, and on top of another scene that happens later, it's even more over the top. So I started to feel really bad for Sai in this episode. But we see, he tries to call Emmett, but obviously since his wife just left, he's not answering anything. He goes to meet with a woman who, I guess she's another person who runs parking industries somewhere else. And so she wants to buy their parking lot from them and, let them still keep the name, but just run it for herself, and she'll pay a good bit of money for it. And so he's trying to, I guess, figure out the best way to maybe work it out without making it obvious, because he knows Varga, if they sell it to somebody else, he knows Varga's probably just going to kill him. And so he's trying to figure out how to say it when Emmett calls, or texts him and says, emergency. So he leaves. We see Varga's guys are following him. He goes to Emmett's house, and Emmett starts, yelling at him like, you're supposed to deal with the situation. Talking about his brother, and then explains to him what happened with Ray. Sai, of course, is like, look, we got a serious problem at the office, and Emmett, of course, isn't hearing any of that. And so finally, he tells Sai, look, gloves off, deal with the situation. And so Sai feels like he has complete, just, I guess, freedom to do whatever he wants. So I don't know exactly what his plan was, but we see later on in the episode, he calls Nikki and tells her, you've made a huge mistake. And so invites her down to the docks. She wants a lot of money. He obviously wants her to pay back what she stole. And so they go and meet at the docks. They start talking. And what was really funny about the scene at first is how confident they both were that they're in the right and the other person should just obviously accept what's going on. Sai is just very like, all right, so 10,000 or 40,000 plus the 10,000 you stole or something like that. And so it's like 50,000 in all. And then she's just like, 200,000 plus give us the stamp. And I'm just, first of all, you asked for 100,000 at first, which is already asking for a lot considering Emmett doesn't feel like he's in the wrong at all. Then you go for 200,000 to tell the wife that everything's okay, and now you're asking for 200,000 and the stamp. You're just making things worse for yourself. And of course, Sai just completely ignores what she has to say, but then Varga's men pull up. And of course, this scene probably is the most memorable scene from this episode. I mean, a lot of really memorable scenes, but this one just stands out for so many reasons. First of all, it's the first time that the deals between Stussy and Co. or whatever they're called, the Stussy parking lot and VM, their little thing going on, their spat kind of has interfered with Stussy versus Stussy. And so we see for the first time you've got Sai and Nikki trying to work their stuff out, and then VM's men pull up, and now Sai and them are trying to work stuff out. And it was very interesting to see kind of that little triangle of people who all really hate each other, because Varga knows about Emmett's brother, and he knows that he's causing a lot of problems, and he wants to get rid of him. And so they're talking to Sai. Of course, they're trying to deal with Nikki, trying to get her out of there because they know that she's causing problems as well. But Nikki, of course, thinking she's in control of the situation, starts yapping and yapping. Yuri throws some comments her way, and she just won't shut up. And so Yuri starts telling her the story about how in his country, they fought off the Hitler and the Nazis, and there's so much blood everywhere. It's stained with red. Here, you don't know about that. You don't know what that's like. And so she just, for the first time, I think, ever in her life probably, she has no comeback. She has nothing to say. And that scene was so funny and yet so just impactful in the way he told the story. And then her reaction is perfect. She's like, It's like watching like an insult battle in high school. You know, two kids just insulting each other back and forth, and then one of them just comes up with an insult that the other one has no response to, so they're just like, and that's exactly what she looks like. It was so funny, but then she's just like, oh, I'm just gonna leave now. She starts to leave. Mimo grabs her, throws her up against the car, and Yuri, I can't remember what he said to Sai, but they take her around behind, and you just hear these hitting noises. You don't exactly see what they're doing, but you just hear them beating her, and slowly her cries of anguish are getting like softer and softer until nothing. You just hear the hitting. She's like, holy crap, did they kill her off? Not quite. We see Sai, of course, once again, I feel really bad for him because you see the look on his face. He's just like, oh my god, I can't get away from this. Like, this is my life now. He gets in his car and just leaves after they leave. And then we see, you know, it's zooming in on the car slowly. Nikki wraps her hand around it and drags herself into her car to leave. Still didn't see exactly what happened to her, but then when she gets back, Ray returns home and finds her in the bathtub. She's got bruises all over her stomach. So I'm assuming they just hit her constantly again and again until I guess the pain maybe made her pass out or something. Which I do find a little bit disappointing because, I don't know, one of the things about Fargo that's made it a very interesting show over the first two seasons is they weren't afraid to kind of go all out. You know, like we saw some pretty grisly death scenes. We saw some pretty grisly torture scenes. We've seen some pretty grisly stuff. You know, so the fact that it was just like, oh, she just got bruises over her stomach, it's like, you know, I've seen a lot worse on this show. And considering they're trying to make a point to her, the fact that they didn't kill her and the fact that they just left her bruised, it's just kind of like, okay. You know, I've seen worse before. So that was the only thing that was kind of disappointing in this episode, is they didn't really go all out when they really could have. You know, it could have been maybe they chopped off a hand, maybe they bloodied up her face, maybe they left marks, you know, all over her instead of just on her stomach. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see if they actually did something or if they just hit her in the stomach over and over again, but she manages to make it out bruised but still alive. Onto the Stussy storyline, we see the next scene for Emmett after what happens with Sai. He calls up Ray, who's on the bus, after leaving the police station. I'll talk about that in a second. But he obviously calls him to tell him, you know, what the hell, my wife saw that, she left me, and, you know, I hate you for that. And so, you know, they have a little bit of an argument. What was very interesting about this, though, is I kind of thought maybe when Ray found out that Emmett's wife saw it first and left him, I thought he would have been a little bit more like, oh, holy crap, dude, I didn't mean to do that. That was just, it was to threaten you. It wasn't to make her leave. Because obviously when Nikki found out about it, she was just like, whatever, because all she cares about is the money. But it seemed like through all of this, even though they're feuding, it feels like they don't really want to hurt the people around him. They just want to get at each other. And so I thought whenever he found out that the wife saw the video and that she left, I thought he was actually going to be apologetic. But we see that, I guess, maybe Nikki's corrupted him so much to the point where now, even then, when he finds that out, he's just like, well, it's what you reap what you sow. And so, I don't know, I find that very interesting that that's kind of what it's come to now, that even though he caused his wife to leave, it still doesn't bother him. It still doesn't really affect him in a way that it probably would have when they first started feuding. So I'll be very curious to see how far gone both of the brothers are. But their argument commences, really funny because Ray, of course, is shouting at him on the bus in front of all these people, and they're like, fuck you, no, fuck you. It's just really funny. And then, of course, after the call ends, everybody's staring at Ray like, what is wrong with this guy? It was my mom. And hangs up and sits down. Perfect response. Anything else he would have said would have been not as funny. And so after, actually, was it after he got off the bus? I can't remember now if he got on the bus to leave the police station or if he got off the bus and then the police picked him up. I don't remember now. But he ends up getting taken in by the police, and this kind of leads to Gloria's storyline. She was telling one of the other cops that she works with about her plan with this other woman cop that came down from, I think, Fargo? But, you know, she's telling him about this plan that she has to question this Stussy brother. And of course the guy's just like, oh, Chief's not going to like that. And she's just like, I don't care, it's the truth. And so they bring in Ray and they start questioning him. Of course, in walks the Chief in the middle of their questioning. Because Ray doesn't, you know, he's constantly just trying to get out of this. Even though they're not really asking anything that incriminating yet, you can tell he's very nervous about everything going on. But they do start asking more and more questions about, you know, what happened with Maurice, what happened with all of that stuff. And, you know, he's getting more defensive. He's just like, oh, but it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter who's driving and all that stuff. But right before they can really start getting into the nitty-gritty about Maurice getting killed and all that, Chief knocks on the window, tells her to come outside, pretty much tells her, you know, this is done. You're done. You're off this case. We're moving on. And here's the thing, and here's what really bugs me about this Chief compared to the other two. And I feel like this is more story-based. This isn't something like, you know, oh, they didn't beat her up as much as they could have. This is probably something intentional that the writers did. This Chief seems a lot more intent on stopping anything Gloria does, as compared to the first two seasons where the Chief was kind of an idiot and didn't really see the connections they were making, but the connections weren't really there. You know, those were just ideas that they had. You know, it was like, oh, you know, I've got an idea of what might have happened, and she wants to start questioning, and people are acting weird about it, but, you know, there isn't really any physical proof. This one, not only is there another woman cop who believes Gloria's story, but also it's very, very good chance that everything that she says is a coincidence, or the Chief says is a coincidence, is actually true. I mean, think about it. It all makes sense. You know, everything with LaFay, everything with Ennis, Stussy, all of that makes a lot of sense. And yet the Chief still says, nope, you're off of it. And it's not as convincing when one of the other cops thinks they have an idea. You know, they've made these connections, they're very smart, and they're just like, oh, well, you know, that leads to that, and it leads to that. But there's no real physical proof there, and it's just an idea in their head, and they want to follow it, and the Chief's just trying to cut them down, saying, no, you can't do this. You know, you've got other work to do. That doesn't matter. You know, we're following a different lead on this case. But this Chief just seems intent not to let her do anything. You know, oh, get back to work, do something else. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's realistic with this Chief. Where the other two, while they are unrealistically stupid for being Chief, it still felt like at least the reasons why they were saying no still felt kind of realistic. You know, you can kind of see from their point of view where they may not see it from their way. But this Chief from the very beginning has just seemed very unrealistically like, I'm cutting down your ideas. You know, any idea you have, even if it's a good idea, even if it's something that makes sense, still cutting it down. And he just doesn't seem to listen to anything she says. So I hope there is sort of a reason for that, more than just, oh, he hates her. But I don't know. I'm hoping that there's some sort of explanation why he's not really letting her express what she believes, and why he's not listening to any of her ideas, which are actually really good ideas. So that's about the only problem I have with her story, but of course they have to let Ray go because the Chief said so. So I'll be very curious to see if she just decides to stop working for the police department altogether, or if she decides to work behind his back some more. It'll be very curious to see where Gloria's story is going from here. But I mean, all in all, this episode was really good. It's furthering more story. It's keeping everything connected, so it's not like branching out and doing all these different things. It really is moving along very well. So really enjoying it all so far. Look forward to seeing what's going to come next. Really, really excited as well. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this episode? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Fargo reviews, and I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.